I do not believe that there is such a thing as B2B marketing. I think all marketing is B to H, business to human to human, because there is not a thing called the business that is making decisions. There is not this single, Borg that goes, oh, must compute information, must make decision. There are decision makers. There are human beings who are going to choose between this product or service or this offering or this partner or whatever it is. And if we don't connect with them on a human level, it's not going to resonate.
Welcome to the B2B Digital Marketer Podcast, a podcast helping you to end your struggle with digital marketing, helping you to pave a new and better path to target and capture your ideal customer. Each week, we teach you how insiders and experts debunk the dreary and become engines of innovation. Now, here's your host, Jim Rembach.
Okay, B2B DM gang, today I'm excited because we're going to have a really colorful conversation about some truths, some lies, and some opportunities for you. Because I have Leslie Ehm on the show. Leslie, hey, thanks for joining us.
Hey, how you doing? Shout out to the gang. Hey, gang.
And I can tell you, so we're talking about swagger. And now we're going to talk about it in context of you. We're going to talk about it in context of digital. But Leslie is the author of Swagger, Unleash Everything You Are and Become Everything You Want. Now, here's the reality. You could probably go out and do some sort of searching and find out tons and loads of information about some of the things that we're going to talk about. But I think, Leslie's going to give us some perspective that that I know you're not going to find everywhere else. So to start, Leslie, if you can, just really kind of give us some insight and understanding of what is swagger.
When we hear the word, we tend to immediately think of that show-offy, arrogant, peacocky, in-your-face sort of machismo, that false front. You know what I'm talking about? That attitude that is got the hint of arrogance, that kind of thing. That is not the kind of swagger that I'm talking about. So let's dispel that myth for a start. My definition of swagger is the ability to manifest who you really are and hold on to it in the face of all of that psychological crap that's going to come for it, regardless of the situation or environment. So it means you have one face, one truth, one heart, and you show up with it no matter where you are, no matter who you're with, and no matter what's happening around you, whether it's stressful, whether it's not, whether it's challenging, you still maintain your authentic self.
Okay. Now in context, now let's peel this back a little bit is, people who are part of the B2B DM gang are saying, well, I'm in B2B marketing, I'm in digital marketing. And so, for me, I see connections with all of this in regards to copy, in regards to, interactions that we have in pre-sale, even with existing customers and clients. But if you can kind of help to make some of those connections for our listeners.
Well, we know that the thing that creates the most connection in this life is authenticity and trust. You can't trust people without believing that you're giving your trust over to something that you can understand, that you recognize, that you can look at them and say, oh, me too. I see that we have a connection on a human level. That's where everything begins. And this, I'm a former advertising creative director, and I've seen the difference between when you write, that real bull malarkey kind of copy, which is a push message that's driven by the brand trying to convince people of something, versus the kind of copy that you write that is working backwards from what that real customer truth is and what we know is going to resonate with them, as opposed to trying to impose something that they're just never going to buy into, because we know it's not about anything that's truly meaningful to them. So you can extrapolate the concept of swagger through everything, through the whole social media, digital influencer kind of idea, and what works to create that connection and so on. Because there is such a fallacy, even with this idea of, influencers and how they have established this brand of perfection. Look at my booty. Look how it pops. Look at my face is so beautiful. Look how my life is so glamorous and so fabulous. Now look at those people who have had a little bit of a come to Jesus for some reason or other. Either they've been taken down or they've confessed that they're going through something behind the scenes that they didn't want everyone to know about, but they, in their journey, they've decided to share that truth with other people. Yeah, they might lose a few followers, but they'll gain so many more because of the fact that they've started to speak their truth, because now their audience goes, oh, I can trust you now because I don't feel like what I'm seeing is one dimensional. I now understand that there is a real, breathing, living, perfectly imperfect, flawed human behind this. It's the same thing that brands do. When brands get playful on social media, their social cachet just goes from wherever it was to into the stratosphere. When they engage in conversations with other brands, when they truly personify what their brand is in an authentic and human way, oh my God, like that is the best stuff. That's what's PR worthy. That's what builds audiences. So swagger applies to everything. It goes beyond just how we as individuals show up, but it applies to everything.
Well, and as you say that, I start thinking more and more about organizations, how they're in need of having, greater presence, digitally, and they're encouraging, basically every single one of their employees to engage in some form, on social media, whether it's creating their own blog, whether it's, the organization's blog, whether it's their, intranet even. And if they're a dispersed, workforce or remote workforce, like many are, everybody is somehow, some way really being impacted by either swagger blockers or swagger enablers. So tell us a little bit about swagger. What are swagger blockers?
I recognize these 5 sort of concrete areas that are going to get in the way of you releasing and unleashing your swagger into the world. And if these resonate with your listeners, it's because they're human. So everybody suffers from these. It's not just some people, it's everyone. So let's imagine for a moment that the real you is trapped inside. It's struggling to get out. You're afraid to speak your truth. You don't feel that you're going to be accepted, and you're sort of stuck. When you want to try and release that into the world, you're going to encounter these blockers. So let's work from the outside in. The outside blocker is the one that's closest to the world but furthest away from you, and that's persona. That feeling that you've got to walk and talk and dress and act a very particular way in order to be accepted by your world or your tribe. So it's that coat that you have to put on every morning when you face your work life, and it's very misaligned with who you are when you're with the people who know you and who you trust the most. Next layer in is ambition. Now, don't get me wrong. I am all for ambition. I want everybody to achieve massive success, but not at the cost of your authenticity. And when your desire for ascension starts causing you to behave in ways that you would otherwise not, there's a problem. Because if you get there by being someone that you're not, you're stuck now. You've got to continue to do that. And you're going to be trapped. The further up the chain you go, the harder it is going to be for you to reconnect with that authenticity, because now you've sold people a bill of goods. So, by definition, you're looking upwards to the next rung of the ladder. And when you do that, you don't spend a lot of time looking inward to yourself, which is where we know all learning comes from. You don't look left and right to your peers and colleagues, which again is not going to help your case. And you sure as hell don't look to your followers, the people who have the power to lift you up. So instead of worrying about ambition, I tell people to worry about being in your place of excellence. Just do a really freaking good job. Be in service of the collective, be in service of the greater good, and you will be lifted to the place that you want to be. But you can see how ambition reinforces persona. Next layer in is insecurity. It's all of those what ifs. It's like the podcast from hell that keeps playing those negative messages over and over and over. What if I don't show up a certain way? What if people don't accept me? What if I don't get that promotion? What if people don't like me? And so on and so on. And in this place of insecurity, there are only questions. There are no answers. And this is where things like the imposter syndrome live. What if people call me out? What if people don't think that I'm credible? What if? So it keeps you in this place of this constant churn And unless you take control of it and deal with those negative voices and those negative thoughts, you will continue to churn. And that is why so many people go after that negative ambition, because they think that if they can get a title or a position, that it's going to validate them to such a degree that those negative tapes will stop playing. By the way, it's not. You have to deal with it by other means, by self-acceptance. So insecurity reinforcing, ambition reinforcing persona. Next, we have fear. Fear is the answer to the what if. What if I don't walk, talk, act, do certain things? Fear is going to say to you, bad things will happen, because our brains operate on a better self than sorry default system. And it will tell us that bad things are going to happen so that we can prepare for them. So our brains will always go to the negative. So, unless we can deal with the fear, we remain paralyzed, because fear is the greatest is the greatest mode that we have to avoid things. If we're afraid of something, we're not going there. And our brains can't differentiate between a tiger is going to eat me and my boss could give me the side eye. To our brains, fear is fear. So now you have fear reinforcing insecurity, reinforcing ambition, reinforcing persona. Last layer in is the biggie. It's the castle gates. It's scar tissue. The last layer is proof. It's pain. Because when we have experienced pain as a result of something, our brains say, oh, I tried that once and bad things happened and I am not going to go there again. And we forget that it's the memory of the thing that is so painful. But the context of our experience in our lives and where we are now is completely different. So if you had something, traumatic to your mind happen to you when you were 10 years old, you're still afraid of it today, even though you're a, grown-ass human. But you still see it through the lens of that 10-year-old person. So pain is this reminder of don't go towards that, stay away from that. And it's the hardest one to break through because really pain is proof. And there you are stuck behind all of those blockers. And whenever you want to speak your truth, it has to navigate and negotiate its way all the way through those blockers in order to see daylight. And each one is going to take its piece. It's going to take its chunk. And even if we do get our truth out into the world, and even if we are validated for that truth, oh my God, Jim, I can't believe that you said that in that meeting. You're so awesome. Good for you. It needed to be said. Super brave of you. That message now has to make its way back through all of those blockers. And it's going to take a beating on the way back because your brain starts going, oh, I wonder if she just said that because she wanted to make herself look good. I mean, like maybe she just wanted to look like she really cared about me. Oh my God, maybe I shouldn't have said it at all. Why do I do that to myself? I should just keep my head down because I know, I've done this in the past. It's gone really bad. Oh, I'm such an idiot. Why do I do that? I'm never doing that again. And then you remain empty. Your swagger cannot flourish and grow. You can't get filled up in those places that are the most vulnerable and the most powerful.
As you're talking, I'm starting to think about a duality here, and I'm starting to think about it, for ourselves and our organization. And then I also start thinking about how all of this will enable us to connect with our customers. So we start getting into copy, we start getting into dialogues and discussions, and how do we actually move somebody down a buyer path and buyer journey? How do I deal, with a buyer team? If I'm because B2B digital marketers, I have to really be thinking about all of this in order for this swagger to be effective for them, so these blockers don't get in their way. So to start off with, there's a couple of pieces. So I want to talk about both of those, but to start off, if we think about this in context of an individual, and I now own my own swagger, and then also I'm part of this collective, meaning this organization. How do I make sure? Because to me, you said the work starts internally, right? We got to go there first.
Yeah. How
do I reprogram my inner voice so where these blockers, aren't doing their work? They're not blocking, right? I'm clearing them out of the way.
Well, achieving swagger is a lifelong journey, like anything. If you want to get fit, you don't just go to the gym for 3 months and then go, I'm good, I'm fit. No, you're going to have to maintain it. You won't have to work as hard to maintain it as you did to get fit in the first place, but you're going to face constant challenges. You're going to have to make decisions and you're going to have to deal with things just like anything else. So my advice to people is first, recognize where you're getting stuck the most. Because otherwise it feels like this insurmountable, mountain that you need to climb, and it's overwhelming, and we don't know where to begin. So I say, figure out where you believe you're getting stuck the most, and start thinking about who you really are. Because listen, we all come into the world a swagger-filled badass. You ask any kid if they're awesome. Oh my God, I'm the smartest. I'm the most beautiful. I can do anything. I'm amazing. And then life comes for you. And even your family who loves you and supports you and wants you to do good things, their messages will resonate with you. Keep your head down, Jim. Don't live too far beyond your means. Keep it safe. Don't take so many risks. All that kind of stuff that starts to create an opinion of ourselves. Or, Jim, you're really smart, but you're kind of like, could you just dial it down a little bit? Could you just focus a little bit more? I mean, you'd be so much better if you focused more. Now, I'm hearing that my lack of supposed focus is something that I should be self-conscious about and I should worry about. And then we go to school and that gets reinforced. And then we have relationships and we go to work, and all of those messages get reinforced along the way. And before we know it, we wake up one day and go, who am I? And how did this happen to me? Like, what have I become? So I think it's important to really look back at the time in your life where you felt the most connected to yourself, when you felt the most free, when you felt like you were speaking your truth the most, and aspire to getting back to that with all the wisdom that you have today, but recognizing that something has been taken from you. You've allowed it to happen. You just didn't realize it was happening. So we want to reconnect with who we are and then go, okay, now where is it hardest for me? That I think is the first step to doing it. And then you got to break it down little piece by little piece by little piece. And before you know it, your swagger is going to be flowing and you're going to feel more full and more powerful.
As you're talking, I started thinking about how, when we start referring to brain development, a lot of our frontal lobe executive functioning just doesn't happen until we get into our 20s. For guys, it's later than the ladies. And so I'm thinking about all these biases that may have been created, before all of this executive functioning happens, because that prefrontal cortex really gives us some insights into consequences, right? And that's the main part of a benefit of that part of our brain. So a lot of the things that have happened prior to, and like you were even saying, hey, when I'm a kid, I'm an awesome, this, that, and the other, but you don't build resiliency by thinking you're awesome and everything. Actually, you're going to get taken down and you won't know how to get back up. So there's a lot of things that have to happen. And so we have to kind of put these things in order for us to be able to make some of that forward movement. So yeah, I think it's interesting.
It's amazing though, because despite the fact that we don't develop that executive functioning part of our brains, the key development to our sense of attachment and security happens when we're really, really young. So the messages that we hear around us, they stick to us like little limpets, and they become the story that we tell ourselves. One of the exercises that I do with people is I ask them to complete this sentence. In the past, I was always told that I was, and I don't give them any other direction. Just fill in that sentence. 97, I'm going to make the stat up, but about 97% of the time, people fill in something negative. I don't give them that direction, but it's the message that they were hearing. So in the past, I was always told that I was too much. In the past, I was always told that I wasn't smart enough. In the past, I was told, whatever it is. And even if that message came with, Jim, like your parents said to you, Jim, you're not really a book smart kind of guy, but you're a really great life smart kind of guy. And I think that's what's going to serve you in this life. So we don't hear the second part. We hear the part that hurts us and that goes into us and forms us. And so that's what we carry with ourselves, our entire lives. And then I say to people, okay, fill in this sentence. Now, today, people always tell me that I'm insert thing. And then we look at the connection between those two things. And one of two things happens. Either people have recognized the thing that they felt criticized for as their superpower, and they've embraced it and learned how to use it, or they have worked incredibly hard to be the opposite of the message that they heard. That is pretty much our life's journeys in a nutshell. We're either trying to undo all the negative stuff that is in our head, or we're trying to reject the negative and accept what we understood was positive about ourselves and use that. Right? That's kind of the human struggle. And we struggle both ways. Because those of us, for example, I was always told that I was too much, that I had to be smaller, I had to dial it down, I had to be more in control. And I refused. I said, nope, this is me. Those were not easy choices. They were choices I made, but they were not easy because the world didn't always accept all of this, right? That's just a fact. But I was just staunch and adamant and saying, no one is going to change me. I believe in myself. I know what drives me. I know that I'm all about love, and you are not going to be able to take it away from me. Enter pain, but that's what life was. Or you're someone who goes, I'm crap because the world has told me that I'm crap. And I have to spend all of this time trying to prove to everyone so that I can prove to myself that I'm not crap. Enter pain, enter struggle. It's just, life gets you one way or the other, which is why the sooner you can tap into that sense of swagger, the easier you're going to be able to right those wrongs one way or the other through self-acceptance or through internal validation.
Okay, so now I start flipping into thinking about this in context because I start seeing, again, I see connections where sometimes other people don't, is the same thing happens with organizations. They kind of lose their identity. They have a situation where they're trying to serve, a customer base, or heck, even get into governments and talking about constituencies. And people are like, well, who the heck are you? Right. And so the trust gets eroded and all those things. So if I'm sitting here and I'm trying to enable and support an organization, to have a better brand identity, to be able to do lead generation in order to be able to convert, sales, how does all this play into being able to do those things? Well,
the first thing, and this may be a little controversial for your audience, so I'm willing to have the discussion. Now, remember, I come from a background of advertising creative director. So I speak from a place of knowledge and experience. I do not believe that there is such a thing as B2B marketing. I think all marketing is B to H, business to human, human to human, because there is not a thing called the business that is making decisions. There is not this single, Borg that goes, must compute information, must make decision. There are decision makers. There are human beings who are going to choose between this product or service or this offering or this partner or whatever it is. And if we don't connect with them on a human level, it's not going to resonate. And that I think, B2B marketing has eroded to the point where it's just, it's noise. It's absolute noise. And when you try to be for everyone, you are by definition for no one. We know this in the truth of marketing. We also know this in the truth of humanity and connection. That if you are trying to get everybody to accept you, sure, on the surface, they might go, I have no problem with you, but it's probably because they haven't given you a second thought. They're not noticing you. They don't care about you. You mean nothing to them. I'd rather make people stop and think and say, is this for me? That's an interesting position. That's a really different position. Is this my tribe? Are these my people? Is this my message? And if the answer is yes, that's a customer you're going to have for life. So all of this, we look at the difference between cost of acquisition and retention. I'm like, what are people not reading these stats? That we're so busy trying to acquire new customers that we don't think about if we could spend our time and attention acquiring customers by really showing them who we are and what makes us unique and special and different. Then once we have them and we are consistent with that because it is our truth, it's authentic to who we are, we'll keep them for life, as opposed to pretending to be someone you're not, getting accepted, and then people go, whoa, 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 hang on a second. I don't see the consistency here. I don't see the authentic message coming through. And earlier you were talking about, how there is an expectation of employees of an organization to be ambassadors for that company, brand ambassadors, as it were, except there's a whole rule book about what we can and cannot do, cannot say, have to be, to the point where so many people on their social say the opinions My opinions are completely mine, as if just because you're an employee of a company, you have to caveat you're speaking your truth. It's like, wait a second, is there a brand on me somewhere? Is there like a barcode that says I belong to the company? But we feel we need to do that. So that's, if our brand stands for something that is human centric and real, we wouldn't have that problem. Other than people, spouting negativity on social and being overtly negative. But if you're a good and decent human being, anything you say about going fishing with your kids and talking about work or having an opinion about something you don't agree on should be okay. And it's not. So we wonder why that brand ambassadorship doesn't count for as much as we hope it does, because people know that it's bullshit.
That's very interesting. That's very interesting.
There.
Yeah. So I can't, in all fairness, I mean, some public organizations kind of have to go down that path from a legal perspective, and the whole investment thing. I mean, some of that disclaimer stuff has to occur. But I do understand, if I'm not, subjected to that, do I really have this, rule book, and, do I have to be essentially PR certified, in order to have, social profiles that, are doing what everybody expects. But I would dare to say, if we do a good job of, hiring and, engaging our employees and, expectation setting and leading, those things will kind of take care of themselves. I mean, we won't have people that are essentially, making it a toxic scenario where we're not able to retain or attract. And I think that's critically important to talk about. There's two things here. Retention, yes, it's important. But if you want to talk about growth and hyper growth, you've got to be able to acquire. Right?
Yeah, but here's the beautiful thing is, if you have that incredibly loyal base, so much of your growth is going to come from referral. It's going to come from word of mouth. It's going to come from reputation. And you're not going to have to constantly be hustling and hustling to find new places where people sort of don't know about you. Because if you do your job right and you are spoken well of, that's how your company would grow. I mean, I can use my own little company as an example of that. When I started my first company, it was just me, my messaging, all great. And then a partner came along, prospective partner, who was a client of mine and loved what I was doing so much. He said, Les, you got to grow it. You got to make it bigger. You got to take it next level. And it took him a year to convince me to partner with him. And I because I'd been there before, wasn't interested. And he made all kinds of promises about what he was going to do as my partner. And I said, okay, I'll take a risk. So we started an offshoot because I didn't want to give up the brand that I built. It took about 2 seconds before he started telling me how I needed to change this brand identity in order to penetrate the corporate market more as a training company, because we were very human centric, irreverent, playful, all of that stuff. And it felt so wrong for me. All of the messaging, the website, it just was sticking in my throat. It was grossing me out. He was like, Les, it's the price you got to pay. People aren't going to take you seriously. You're not going to be able to get into those Fortune 500 companies, blah, blah, blah. And I listened for a little bit until I could feel my insides literally screaming. They were screaming. And I sat him down one day and I said, why did you want to be my partner in the first place? He said, because I wanted you to grow your dream. I wanted you to make it bigger and I wanted you to whatever. And I said to him, so how's that working out for you? Because I'm dying here. This is so inauthentic to me. It's not real. And I would rather remain the size that I am than do it in a way that's inauthentic to me. And I said, I think we should part ways, which we did. And I went all in on developing the brand that I believed in. Within 4 or 5 months of that, Google hired us to develop their global marketer training program and deliver it, which we did for 4 years, traveling the world for them. It took 4 months. And the reason they were attracted to us was because they'd heard about us, because there was really good word of mouth. And because when they did see our social presence, they went, oh yeah, that's something different. We love that. That's great messaging. We believe in that. That's right for us. And cut to 13 years later, and I've trained countless conservative, Fortune 100 companies. So it's a story that we tell ourselves. But if we walk our talk within the organization, to your point, if we really are living and breathing our brand values, then we don't have to worry so much. But it's when our brand values are kind of, puppety, lip servicey, and they don't really mean anything to our people. It's not something that they can truly embrace and step into and activate on a daily basis. Like if you say that one of our brand values is authenticity, okay? Then when you're talking to a client and you say, look, I'm always going to tell you the truth, even if it's not pretty and even if it's not good for me. I will always tell you the truth because I believe that whatever I might lose in the short term, we will gain in the long term. Are you okay with that? You think any customer or any client is going to say no? Please lie to me. Please, lip service me. Please tell me what I want to hear. And it gives you, because it's all about your intention, right? To say, I will speak the truth in service of you achieving what you want to achieve. I will not speak the truth in order to take something from you, because that wouldn't be authentic.
Okay, so I go through all this work. I work on self. I work on team. I work on organization. We're engaging, interacting with customers and prospects, and we're starting to see some alignment. We're starting to see some momentum. But all this sounds great in theory. But how do I know that swagger is really working?
I think you're going to see a couple of things. You're going to see your teams working better together because they're able to speak their truth and they're being accepted for who they are. You'll see that they will start to tap into as of yet unreserved stuff. If you think about a company that's looking to innovate and grow and change and be creative, when we don't have a culture of swagger, when we have a culture of judgment and lack of acceptance and so on and so forth, our people will be unwilling to take risks, because they're afraid if they stick their heads out, they're going to get them cut off, right? And if we're in a culture where I come up with an idea and someone kills it and shoots it down and I feel like I'm a dumbass, we're not going to do it. If I feel like I can't be honest about the fact that I'm going through something personal and I need to take myself away for a little bit and regain my energy, or I'm going through something that means my head is not in the game, so I'm taking the team down with me because my head is not in the game because I'm going through something personal. If I can't say that out loud because I feel I'm going to be judged, and so on and so on and so on. But if I can do all of those things, think about the extra engagement, energy, level of innovation, level of risk taking I'm going to bring to my team. There's been all of this research done that says most people bring about 60% of who they really are to their work. And that lack of engagement, that lack of motivation, that lack of alignment and commitment and consonance with their organization causes them to go, oh no, you don't deserve all of me. I withhold the parts that I feel can be hurt by this organization. But if you embrace the whole human, they're going to bring all their stuff, because we know that research says that the number one thing that makes people happy at work. Well, let's do a little test. Jim, what do you think has been recognized as the number one thing that keeps people happy at work?
Feeling valued.
Actually, no. It's got to be up there on the list, but it's not the one thing. Give me another guess. What do you think?
Well, I have some training in some of this. As far as the statistics goes, is a different story in regards to what you're looking at. So for me, another one is difference management, which really looks at the individual and sees them as unique, and it's different than feeling valued.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so that's looking at it from this side, from which I agree with you 100%. That's one of the most incredible things. But for an individual, the number one thing that has been recognized as the greatest source of motivator at work and what keeps people working at organizations is their ability to experience a sense of progress. If they feel that they're able to contribute meaningfully to moving something forward, they're all in. And progress means something different to every individual, to your point, to that differentiated thing. So, I mean, if you're a coder, cracking a really tough piece of code is like, yes, progress, I did it. If you're a CEO, it might be the healthy financial growth of your organization, or it might be the recognition of your organization as being something, whatever it is. But you see that your contribution is moving things forward in some way, shape, or form. Without it, people tap out. They're not interested. So if you're looking at your people and saying, we are making progress, and you can help to identify it and celebrate it in your individuals, you'll see that they're going to want to contribute more and more and more. So it really is, if you start to see them taking more risks, being more honest, arguing less, debating more, like not like having healthy conflict as opposed to, that bullshit consensus making that people do when there's a lot of conflict and they just want to get it over with. They go, sure, great, no problem. I agree with you, because I don't want to have, those are the things that you're going to see. But as a leader, you have to model it. You have to model it, and you have to minimize your acceptance and tolerance of the anti-swagger behavior that you see in the organization, the negative judgment, the telling people that who they are is not acceptable in some way, shape, or form, the pushing people to fall into these assimilated kind of behaviors, and keeping their heads down, and chastising them for speaking out in meetings, and all of those things. You gotta walk that talk, or your people won't.
Okay, so so now I started getting into thinking about how we can start this process. So what should a B2B digital marketer be asking themselves right now?
Am I full of crap? It's a good place to start. Like, let me look back on my day and think about all the conversations that I have and how I felt about it when I got home, because authenticity is the alignment of what you think and feel with what you say and do. So if you come home every day and you feel like what you said and did was not in alignment with how you thought and how you felt, you got some work to do right there. You've got to start to close that, I call it the swagger gap, close that swagger gap. And you got to think about, how can you speak your truth more? But here is the thing about truth. It's not just about running around with your hair on fire going, I must speak my truth and you all must hear me. Because people won't, because they don't care. They're not interested. People care about what's good for them. They care about themselves, fundamentally. It's survival. It's fair enough, Me first, others second. That's the way it should be. But you can reframe your truth in such a way that the other person understands how it benefits them as well. Because if your truth only benefits you, no one's interested. So you've got to think about, how is this good for me, for the collective, and for the greater good? And if I frame it that way, all of a sudden people have time and patience for it. You also have to think strategically about, when do you speak your truth? You're like, is this exactly the right time to do it? And is this the right place to do it? Should I do it in the middle of the meeting where there's all these people and it might make someone look bad? Nope. You're better off waiting and then making a decision. Do I go and talk directly to that person who I disagreed with? Or do I go and talk to the boss and say, I disagreed with an idea that was shared in that, and let me tell you why? Because then you're not using your truth or your swagger to elevate yourself and to diminish somebody else, right? So your truth is absolutely critical, and your intention. Why? Why are you saying it? Why is it important? Why do you want to speak your truth? Why do you want to show up authentically? And check yourself through that. So I think that's a really good first step, because it'll tell you whether your swagger is developing or it's been shut off. And then go to the next question. Okay, where is it getting stuck? Why am I not speaking my truth? Why do I feel so misaligned? And then, because I come from a training background, I wasn't playing with this book. I didn't want just this lovely, fluffy, wuffy inspirational book, nor did I want something that was so just 100% research-based that it was just fact after fact, data point after data point. I wanted it to be practical, doable, and actionable the very next day, which is my whole ethos. So it's filled with exercises for how to manage and negotiate and break through every single one of those blockers, even how to practice speaking your truth. Because if it's not something you've been doing for a long time, you might not know how, right? So like anything, you have to practice.
Yeah, I would dare to say nobody knows how to do that. And as you were talking, I'm like, all of this could be extrapolated to the organizational level when you start talking about swagger gap. Because there's the three pillars that are most important that a marketer needs to be able to leverage. That is sales, all the people and all the processes associated with sales, and everything that happens from a data point in a qualitative and quantitative perspective in regards to performance. Then, of course, your marketing activities, but then the other part, which oftentimes is missed, is the whole customer service or client success or customer success area. And all of that needs to be assessed, kind of like, what you're talking about, to see where my swagger gaps are for the organization.
Absolutely. And what's crazy to me is that because we're all human beings and every B2B marketer is also a human being who is also a consumer, we know exactly what it feels like when we are dealt with in a positive and human way. And yet we then turn around and recommend that others don't pay attention to that, or we ignore that. I'll give you an example. I ordered, months ago, I ordered a couch for my deck at the cottage, new couch. And it's promised that it was going to be delivered in, I don't know, whatever, it's 4 weeks. Comes 5 weeks, still no sign of it, still no message. And there's no way to call anyone. It's all via email. So it's very frustrating. And you have to use like a form factor and everything. So I send my form factor. I'm like, hey, where's my thing? I get a very canned response. And I'm like, hey, no. Someone's got to tell me, when is this coming? I got to know when it's coming. And I get a form factor again. And third time I was like, what the heck is going on? Can a human please talk to me? And I finally got a response from this lovely woman who said, oh God, I'm so sorry. Sometimes the form factors just take a long time to get their way through to people. Here's what I found out for you. It's going to be exactly this. It's going to be that. And hey, I see that you're an author. I checked out your book. Sounds really cool. Let me know if there's any way that we can support it. I was like, okay, extra mile girl. This was amazing. I was like, I said, oh, this is fantastic. Thank you so much. Now, I don't care that it's 2 weeks late now because that's how long it took. I'm like, whatever, it's good for you. It's fine. And listen, hey, if you want to, if you want me to show up and talk about my book for a little with your people, I'd be more than happy to do that. So I just now gave something of myself to the people who are late delivering my couch. That's because the interaction was human.
Great example. Okay, so I'm sitting here and I have all of these activities and all these responsibilities, and I have resources and budgets that are available or that are being put in place. If I'm a B2B digital marketer, where should I be reallocating some of my resources so that I can make sure that I'm closing these swagger gaps and I'm building my tribe, I'm retaining my customers, and I'm acquiring new ones?
All of my experience in the training space, and that's about 13 years now, is that we tend to prioritize what I refer to as hard skills, right? It's the hard skills training. It's what we consider to be the tangible, measurable skills, like how well do we use this tool or how, all of that stuff. And we forget that underneath it is still the human being who has to adopt those skills, who has to behave a certain way, who has to be able to become advocates for new skills, who has to want it, who has to be able to embrace change, who has to be able to lead their people into change. But we allocate those into the soft skills category. And this was what led me to write Swagger. Because when I was out in the world training these Fortune 100 companies and working with CEOs down and training them on things like leadership and storytelling and presentation skills and communication and creativity, all of which are in that fuzzy wuzzy space, somewhere between hard and super soft skills. What I discovered was that I could train the crap out of these people. I could give them all the skills in the world. But if they, at their core, did not feel that they were good enough, or they didn't believe that they could show people who they really were and still achieve success, all of those skills, all of that skills training was going to come to nothing, because they weren't going to be able to bring them to life in a meaningful way. They were still going to be in that fake it till you make it paradigm, which does not work. So if we would start to focus on human beings and help them to not just accept who they are more, but accept where they are in their journey and make them feel comfortable in that place, the amount of confidence they're going to manifest will be radical, because we all want to experience confidence and every leader wants to see that in their people. But what they don't understand is confidence only comes as a result of competence. Only when you've done something over and over and over again can you prove to your highly resistant brain that, yeah, I got this. I could do this. You could throw me into a bunch of situations and I know how to do this. But if you are valuing confidence above everything, then what you're going to condition your people to do is to never want to move out of their comfort zone. Because as soon as they want to change or grow or evolve or take risks, they get punted out of that place of confidence back into that competence building, and they're back into fake it till you make it. So we need to have a different conversation with our people and say, we're not going to beat you up for not being 2 years ahead of where you're supposed to be. It's crazy that we do this to people, and people are terrified to walk into a presentation and to be called out for not knowing as much as other people think they should, and not having the strength and the courage and the sense of psychological safety to say, okay, well, this is where I am in my journey. This is as much as I know. Now, there's someone else on my team who knows more, so we can bring that person in and they're going to talk to you about more, but I can go deep in everything I know now. And if that's not enough for this audience, then we were misaligned in what the purpose of this presentation was. Not there's something wrong with me and I failed. No. So that whole story and the stories we tell ourselves they need to change. And people need to understand how much power they have in changing that and creating an organization that allows for that acceptance and that healthy, comfortable growth.
Well, those are rare. Maybe we can be part of building one or owning one.
Yes,
right?
Swagger revolution, baby.
I hear you.
My life's work.
Leslie Ehm, that was a fun conversation. Had a lot of insights that I know we can leverage. How can the B2B DM gang get in touch with you?
Well, you can learn more about what we do from a training perspective at combustionco.com. You can learn more about me and the Swagger work at leslieehm.com. That's LESLIEEHM. You can learn more about the book at swaggerthebook.com. And listen, this book is now a Wall Street Journal bestseller, a USA Today bestseller. People are getting the message. They are feeling the swagger love. And so you can get the book absolutely everywhere, which is awesome.
Leslie Ehm, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom, and we wish you the very best.
Thank you for joining us. Go now to join the B2B DM gang in the B2B Marketer LinkedIn group, where you can connect with other B2B DM disruptors and get access to our B2B DM cheat sheets, checklist, and guides. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, please help by going to iTunes to rate, review, and subscribe. And share the show on all of your digital platforms. Be sure to tune in next week for our next episode. And always remember, you can automate your lead capture, but you must lure your lead.